Hello and welcome, guys. We are here for a new league with a new list. Today we are playing Flippin Amulet, and there's a lot of unique stuff going on here. First of all, we've got 4 copies of Courser of Crufix in the main board here. 3 mana, 2/4 creature that allows you to play the top card of your library if that card is a land, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. That's one of the biggest changes. We also have a couple copies of Glasspool Mimic. This is a 3 mana copy card. It can only copy creatures that you control, but you can also just play it as a enter the battlefield tapped blue land. Much in line with the thought process behind this build, where we have access to Balaged Recovery and Tangled Florahedron as additional lands here, additional live top decks. We also have access to Turntimber Symbiosis, which is one I picked up since I last played the deck. And yeah, we are playing 25 lands, as you can see here on the screen, but in all actuality, we're playing closer to the tune of 36 lands. I have cut the Beast Withins from the sideboard as we are playing 4 basic lands alongside a couple Tangled Florahedrons. So Blood Moon is a little less of a problem, and we also have creatures like Courser and Florahedron in order to pressure a onboard Ashiok. So we are less soft to that particular threat. And instead, we've got 1 copy of Ramanop Excavator to go along with our Florahedrons and Recoveries and Mimics. If any of these cards hit our graveyard, we can play them as lands using the ability of Ramanop Excavator. At least so my exploration has found out. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but we'll see in the league. And of course, a similar philosophy will apply here. Courser lets us play the top card of our library if it is a land card, and my sources say that you can play a Tangled Florahedron or a Balaged Recovery as a land from the top of your deck using Courser of Crufix. Again, we'll see if that proves true or not. But yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've played Flippin Amulet, and I'm glad to jump in here with a little bit more of an experimental Amulet brew. Of course, we do have 8 bounce lands here in order to pick up Tolaria Wests or Mimics or Balaged Recoveries or other lands that we've put into play that we want to pick up. Obviously, bounce lands are very important for that. They pair with our Amulet, of course, to make a lot of mana. And yeah, everything else is pretty standard. I believe that we are not playing a copy of Ghost Quarter in the main deck. In fact, we do have it here in the sideboard, as some concessions had to be made. We're playing no copies of Azusa. Yeah, part of the reason for including Courser here, other than the fact that it pairs very well with these flip lands, is that if you want to play copies of Glasspool Mimic in your deck, then you need worthy 3-drops to copy. You want to be getting your full 3 mana's worth of value out of Mimic. So if you're not copying a Primeval Titan, copying a Dryad or a Courser tends to be a good move, I would say. And yeah, I don't know how good this list is, and clearly there are many changes that could be made. This is just where I'm at the moment, and we'll see how good it is together. I will see you guys for the first match. All right, we have our first match. Let's see what this deck does. Hopefully we won't be missing our land drops, and hopefully we won't be flooding on lands either. Ooh, this is an interesting hand. We got a double Amulet hand, we've got a Dryad, and we've got a Glasspool Mimic. So we have a route to get multiple Primeval Titans into play here if we draw one. I'm definitely inclined to keep this, I would say. We got an Urza land. Well, Mimic might be very good against Urza in general. If we can get a Titan into play, we'll quickly have multiple Titans in play, which is one of the upsides of playing Glasspool Mimic. Of course, this top deck here is pretty good, letting us cast an Amulet on turn 1. This way we can play turn 2 Dryad, maybe even double Dryad. I don't know, we'll have to do some math to see how close we are to casting a Turntimber flip side this upcoming turn. It's definitely possible. Hmm. I think from my calculations so far, we can play second Amulet, play Growth Chamber, float 1 and cast Dryad, play Growth Chamber again, up to 5 mana floating, play Mimic, Copying Dryad with 2 mana floating, go up to 6. So it looks like we'll be one short of casting Turn Temper this upcoming turn, unless we draw a Summoner's Pact, in which case we'll probably just be casting a Primeval Titan this upcoming turn. I don't know, we'll see. Actually, no, I think if we draw Summoner's Pact, okay, well there's a Titan. So we can play Amulet into Dryad, float 1, play Growth Chamber again, play second Dryad, float 2, play Growth Chamber, play Titan. I think we have Titan this turn. Just the casual crazy opener here. We could be playing against Eldrazi Tron as well. That's something worth noting. We'll see exactly what we're playing against here in a second. Hopefully they don't have a Dismember. That would be kind of embarrassing. Yep, let's just pick up the Turn Timber since we have a second Growth Chamber anyways. Here goes the Dryad, and we'll leave the... It doesn't really matter what mana we leave floating. Let's leave a blue floating here. Okay, I am not going to play around Dismember here. I'm just going to go ahead and slam this Glasspool Mimic. Hopefully it works. Alright, Mimic. We'll just leave all of our green floating. No Dismember, please. Oh no, do they have the Dismember? Oh no! This is terrible. Man, okay, well, I think our Mimic just dies here. Yeah. Alright, well, we're passing it back. We can still cast Titan this upcoming turn, so it's not the end of the world. Let's hope our opponent doesn't have a third Tron land. We definitely just got owned by Dismember. Our opponent is probably on Eldrazi Tron here with mainboard Dismembers, I would think, so. I suppose a Thought-Knot Seer would be a little problematic if they had Eldrazi Temple and a Thought-Knot Seer. They need something here, though. It'll be hilarious if we manage to win this game after having gotten 2-for-1 with a Dismember. Unfortunately, our Ghost Quarter is in the sideboard here, so we have our own little bit of work to do here. I'm kind of tempted to get double bounce land off of our Titan Enter the Battlefield trigger and just cast Turn Timber Symbiosis. That could be really an egregious error, though. And we have a Tolaria West as well. What does that mean? So we're definitely playing the Growth Chamber here, as we are casting Titan this turn for sure. So we're one short of being able to transmute for and cast a second Titan here, so we're probably just going for the haste here. Okay, so we would be we would be several short of hasting and casting Turn Timber Symbiosis. If we just cast a Turn Timber Symbiosis and don't find exactly a Primeval Titan, then we don't get to attack this turn. So I think I'm inclined to just go ahead and go for the haste here. Unfortunately, like I said, we don't have that Ghost Quarter, so we'll see what exactly occurs here. Let's see, we put our opponent to 10. Unfortunately, there's no way to kill our opponent with Dryad this turn. We could get a Growth Chamber and a Talaria West here, pick up the tapped Growth Chamber. We'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we would have to get double bounce land to transmute Talaria West, Summer's Pact 4, and cast a 3-drop here. We probably ought to do that, though. It would have to be double Growth Chamber, actually, in order to transmute. I think it's probably worth it. Ooh, actually, now I'm thinking about it, if we get double bounce land, we can't actually do the transmute thing because we'd have to pick up 2 of these lands and play, and that would leave us with 5. So I guess there's no point in doing that. Let's get the second Valakut and maybe a Growth Chamber anyways. That'll leave us with the mana to transmute Talaria West this upcoming turn and play a Primeval Titan if we play Growth Chamber for turn. We have a lot of options here. I'm not sure that it's particularly matters, but let's see, if we just get a Feel the Dead, for example, here instead, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we'd still be able to transmute, so we have the freedom to get any other land here. I really don't know if it matters. Let's just get a field, I suppose. Let's see, if our opponent tectonic edges us off of this Growth Chamber here, then we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is not enough to transmute for and play a Titan. I guess it's probably safest to just get a Garenbrig here. That way we'd have 1, 2, 6, activate Garenbrig plus the Valakut would be enough to transmute and still cast a Titan. Okay, I think that Garenbrig is the move. Okay. Alright, pass it back. So now, even if they have a Tectonic Edge for our Growth Chamber, we can play our Growth Chamber, float double green, double blue, use the 2 blue and one of the Valakuts to transmute Talaria West, leaving 2 green floating, and then use the 2 green plus the second Valakut and the Hanweir to activate Garenbrig and cast another Titan. So I'm not sure if this list is playing a Vesuva now that I'm thinking about it. Let me go check. No Vesuva in the list. All is dust, that's fine. Chalice on 0. Okay, well, at least we have Turn Timber Symbiosis. I don't think there's a mainboard Engineered Explosives either. No, okay. Well, we'll see what our Turn Timber hits. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can just play the Garenbrig here and have Turn Timber. We do have triple green. I suppose if we do hit a Titan, we're going to want to be able to haste with the Hanweir, though. So 1, 2, 3, 4 with the green to activate, leave up the Garenbrig, and actually, no, we can't activate the Garenbrig to cast Turn Timber. Okay, whatever. I'm just playing a Growth Chamber here. Too much math. We'll just pick up the Growth Chamber. We'll activate. Might as well leave the blue floating, I suppose. Oh, never mind. This is exactly the right amount of mana. Warping Whale to counter our Turn Timber Symbiosis. Okay, well, things are suddenly looking really bad. We could still just top deck a Primeval Titan. Or a Polygon Recovery to get back our Primeval Titan would allow us to cast Titan as well. Field, okay. Does our opponent have a threat? They have Oblivion Sower. Is going to let them exile the top 4 cards of our library and then put any number of lands from among them under their control. I wonder if that includes our flip lands. Oh, they hit a Titan! No! And they hit Field of the Dead? Yikes. Okay. Well, we could still actually beat this, I think. Map, okay. Hmm. Unfortunately, we can't transmute Telaria West for one of our flip lands because when you're searching your library, they're only the front part, so the creature or sorcery. So we can't go like pick up a Turn Timber Symbiosis with our Telaria West. Sadly, they search for a Blast Zone. Okay, that doesn't really bother me in all honesty. All right, something good. A basic forest is not that great. Have to admit. Let's go ahead and play that one out, though. I suppose. Let's see, is there anything that we can transmute for here? Nope. I don't think there's anything relevant. Okay, let's just play out our... I mean, we don't have a Field of the Dead in play anymore, so it doesn't really matter to have differently named lands. Whatever. Let's just play the basic forest and pass. If we draw a Dryad as well, that would let us start triggering Valakut. I think a Dryad actually just kills them if they don't have a Dismember, right? Because that's 1, 2, 3, 4 Valakut triggers, so they can kill our amulets here. That's probably fine. We are already to the point of casting Primeval Titan the hard way, so it would be pretty tragic if we top decked a Summoner's Pact here. Maybe we should transmute Telaria West for Summoner's Pact just to get it out of our deck so we have more live top decks. Oh no, do they have the Ulamog? Chalice for 6. Okay. Well, we still have outs against this one as well. Primeval Titan is no longer one of them, but we can still get a Dryad in play. Dryad. No! Summoner's Pact, no! Alright, let's transmute this Telaria West, I suppose, to get a card out of our deck. It's kind of sad, but it is the state of affairs here. And we'll just pick up the forest, I suppose. Let's see. Is there anything more relevant than getting a Summoner's Pact here? We could get... I guess Cavern lets us cast Primeval Titan through the Chalice. Okay, so it's definitely Cavern. Alright, and we'll pass it back. Yeah, now that we can Cavern through a Titan, that gives us a couple of additional live top decks here. Reshaper is totally fine. We can draw a Titan, we can draw a Dryad, we can draw a Turn Timber Symbiosis. Even Courser wouldn't be too bad here. It wouldn't really get us ahead exactly, but it would give us a blocker for the Reshaper here and let us kind of thin the top of our deck. Oh, they didn't attack with the Sower. That's weird. Okay, there's a Titan. Well, definitely rewarded for getting Cavernous Souls here. See, that's 4, 5, 6. Yeah. I don't see any reason to hold up any differently colored mana here. Here goes the Titan. Yep. Now what do we get? I guess Radiant Fountain gives us a little bit of time. And I guess that's it. We could get a bounce land here. We could just get another land out of our deck. Just thin the deck a bit. Bog to exile our opponent's graveyard is probably not relevant. Let's just get a... Let's just get another Garenbrig, I guess. Okay. Are we attacking with our Titan? Oddly enough, I think that we are probably not. Let's see. If we do attack, then we'll lose our Titan, but we'll get the Reshaper out of play, and we'll get 2 more lands out of our deck to thin it to find some other potentially good cards. But if we leave up, then we have more turns to top deck, since they can't attack into our Titan. The Titan profitably blocks the Sower, and if they attack with both, we can block and kill the Matter Reshaper, I suppose. I suppose they can tick up their Blast Zone to 6. We'll see. They're putting it on 3 to play around Dryad. Okay. That is vaguely annoying. They play a Waste. They currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 land names, so they're 1 away from starting to trigger these 2 Field the Deads they have in play. They're attacking with the Reshaper. I think I'm inclined to block here. It means that we can start attacking with our Titan profitably. They get to draw a card here, basically, but that's fine. Karn the Great Creator. That one is a little bit of a beating. Yep. They're minusing, of course. I'm not sure what exactly we can do to win this game. Since a Dryad isn't enough. I guess we'd have to draw back-to-back Dryad. Sky Sovereign. Okay, that one flies, so they can get over our Primeval Titan here. Oh, they can actually kill our Primeval Titan with the Sky Sovereign. That's pretty annoying. Okay. How much is it to activate Blast Zone? 3. So they can activate their Blast Zone if we draw a Dryad here. I think we have to play the Dryad anyways to force it, so I don't know. Let's top deck something good. Something good. Every time it's a forest, huh? Okay, well, let's play the forest and pass it back. I think we're probably just dead here. The 11. I guess it'll be 10, since they'll probably plus on the Sky Sovereign with their Karn, so. Yeah, I think we're just dead here. I'm inclined to just go ahead and concede for time's sake. Man, I felt like they had everything they needed to at the right times. Maybe it was not a good idea to play into the possibility of them having Dismember. Maybe not. I don't know. I do think perhaps Dismember is a good one to bring in, as it will answer our opponent's Thought Not Seers or Reality Smashers, assuming that they do have those. Ghost Court is obviously one that we're going to want here. Reclamation Sage as well. Excavator, perhaps. I guess replaying Ghost Quarter with Excavator is pretty good. Force of Vigor is good. 1 Engineered Explosives to play to pop Chalice on 0 using a colorless source like a Ghost Quarter or a Hanweir seems relevant. The question is, do we want these Dismembers or not? I think that we do. Kind of odd, but I think that we do. Okay, and what are we removing? We can trim a Summoner's Pact as they are weak to our opponent's Chalices. We can trim Grazer here, as speed is not super relevant, and they don't block anything, really. We might even be able to trim another Grazer here. I'm not opposed to that. Glasspool Mimic is kind of bad against our opponent's Dismembers, but we can maybe play around them. I don't know. I'm not super inclined to cut Glasspool Mimic at this point. Recovery seems like it could be good. Although we don't have much to recur in this matchup. Dismember, Summoner's Pact seems kind of redundant. I don't know. I'll trim a couple of Bollygads, I think. What else? What else? Cavernous Holes is actually surprisingly relevant. Bajuka Bog seems bad against our opponents since they can get back their artifacts from exile with Karn. Uh, hmm. I guess it's just another Grazer. I don't know. Playing a turn 2 3-drop seems pretty good against them. Could be a Mimic. I don't know, though. Our opponent won't always have Dismember, and Mimic is very good if it copies a Titan or even a Dryad, so maybe it's fine. Maybe we don't want Explosives. I don't know. I think Explosives is fine as a one of. We could trim another Balaged. I don't hate that. Or maybe even a Castle Garenbrig wouldn't be the worst. Our opponent could have Damping Sphere, which is something to note. They might have Torpor Orb as well. Let's see, maybe just another Summoner's Pact. Oh, we have 61 cards. Uh, that's fine. We'll play first, of course. Hey guys, I gotta pause for a second here because unfortunately the audio from this point on has been cut out. There was some of this game that we're about to play here that was captured live, but about halfway through the game it cuts out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue the video this way, game 2 on, and hopefully you don't mind too much. I've included as much live recording as I can, but yeah, this is Red Face Minutes from the future come to describe to you game 2. Like I said, I hope you don't mind too much. And yeah, let's just jump straight in here on the play, of course. All right. So we are greeted with this 7-card hand. And we have a force to interact with a potential Chalice of the Void or Torpor Orb or whatever a Karn might get, and that's pretty useful. We have a little bit of early acceleration with a turn 1 Grazer kind of hand here with our Turn Timber and Bounce Land, which means if we top deck a 3-drop like a Courser or a Dryad, we'll be able to play it immediately on turn 2, which is quite nice. We have access to a Titan, and we're only 1 land away from having Titan mana, so we do decide to go ahead and keep this, and our opponent keeps their 7. And of course, we lead off here on Turn Timber into Grazer. Our opponent leads on Tron Land plus Chalice on 0, one that we were kind of expecting here. And yeah, that's a bit of an annoyance, but hopefully we can manage as we top deck a Balaged Recovery here. So this will be a way to get back our force if we need to cast it a second time, and it also is a land source here, which is pretty useful. Now we have Titan mana, so of course, here we're going to play out our tap Field of the Dead and pass it back. I suppose if we were certain we're not going to cast the recovery to get back a Force or a Summoner's Pact or something in the future, then maybe going ahead and playing this out tapped so that we can play a Courser this upcoming turn if we draw it makes sense, but we're not really sure of that, so we decided to go ahead and keep the recovery in hand at this point. Our opponent plays a not Tron land, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, it is Scavenger Grounds, which will potentially cause a problem for our Balaged in the future if they're holding up mana, but we'll see how that plays out. And our opponent casts Torpor Orb, which is interesting. Usually this is one that would be in their sideboard to minus a Karn for, but here it is in the main board. Usually this would be pretty problematic, but considering we have Force of Vigor here to deal with both of these problematic artifacts with only 1 card, that is not really a problem. So, and we do, of course, draw Courser to punish the fact that we didn't play Balaged, but that's okay, because here we're just going to use our full 4 mana here at instant speed to force these 2 things. Yeah, not much else to say about it. Our opponent plays second Tron land and passes it back here with no play, so they are actually holding up Scavenger Grounds, although I don't think that they're playing around Balaged Recovery in all honesty, but I suppose it's possible. We do go ahead and pop off this Force of Vigor here and untap. And here we have the choice of recovering back the Force or playing a Courser here. And I choose to go with the Courser line because if our opponent plays land into Karn this upcoming turn, we'd like to have something in play to harass that Karn just a little bit. We see an Amulet on top of our library, which is an interesting one. And yeah, we get to play our land drop, gain some life, all the triggers, you know how it goes. And yeah, that is this turn here. So far, we're doing pretty alright. Our opponent does have their 4th land here as a Cascading Cataract, which I still, even after the match has concluded, do not know why our opponent is playing, but that's okay. And we see another Chalice on 0, and here, of course, we're going to Summoner's Pact in response, so we don't have to play around this Chalice at all. We can always pay for the Summoner's Pact here. Our opponent's already played land for turn, so we know they can't just like tectonic edge away our Gruul Turf or anything crazy like that. So let's just go ahead and get our Titan into our hand here. And yeah, now we have a Florahedron on top. Is this gonna make me resize it every time? That would be pretty annoying. Okay. And our opponent does have that Karn that we were anticipating, so it's a good thing we played out this Courser. And here they choose to immediately go ahead and minus, which is interesting, and they get the liquid metal coating here. Another interesting choice. It seems like it might be difficult to keep this Karn in play, but maybe our opponent has a plan here. And yeah, we untap, we pay for our pack trigger here, and we draw the Florahedron for turn. And yeah, so of course we're going to go ahead and just play out our land and cast our Tangle Florahedron here, not only as a way to clock this Karn, but also if our opponent coding was away one of our non-Gruul Turf lands, we'd still have access to Titan mana thanks to the Florahedron being a Llanowar Elf. So it does a dual purpose of accelerating us here and getting us ahead of this liquid metal coating that our opponent has, while also pressuring this Karn. And yeah, we are going to swing at the Karn, of course, and pass it back. Our opponent is, of course, going to commit their coding and immediately blow up our Gruul Turf. So now if we top deck any untapped land, we'll be able to cast Titan, thanks to our Florahedron play, of course. And our opponent plays Walking Ballista for 1. So, of course, they're going to use this to shoot down our Florahedron. We'll see if they can actually save their Karn the Great Creator this turn by blocking the Courser and shooting the Florahedron and getting an additional activation or 2 out of Karn. So this is going to buy them an extra turn. Of course, they risk us just top decking a untapped source off the top to slam Titan here, which we don't, sadly. It skipped a little bit. I realized I was staring at a turn temper symbiosis, and I was like, wait a minute, yes, we could have. But now, this was the card that was underneath our actual top card, which was this Glasspool Mimic here, which we're going to go ahead and play for turn, gain our life, get our value out of Corso while we still can. And here, before we do anything else, we're going to go ahead and commit the attack here at Karn. And, of course, our opponent does the block, shoot the Florahedron thing, so their Karn stays alive. No damage taken, of course. And yeah, here we get to commit our Ramanop as a way to start getting back the lands that our opponent is coding, and also another way to pressure our opponent's Karn. And yeah, that's the turn. Done everything we can do, and our opponent throws a Dismember at our Ramanop Excavator, which is a pretty good one for them. And yeah, they coding away our green source here, of course, trying to keep us off of Titan mana by virtue of cutting us off of green, which is an intelligent plan. And they just pass it back. So here it's irrelevant to note that our opponent has passed without playing a land, 2 cards in hand. Clearly they must be holding on to something big, like a Karn Liberated or some kind of big Eldrazi, something that costs 6 mana perhaps. Or another thing that they could be holding on to is a second Karn the Great Creator, which is of course something they couldn't play with a Karn already in play, as our opponent is passing it back to us here. So those are things to keep in mind as we go ahead and draw this turn timber for turn. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and start the turn off by attacking the Karn with our Courser to see if our opponent has another Dismember for it or something like that. Maybe they're holding up a Dismember. Of course, they probably would have fired that off immediately so we couldn't get value from our Courser after we draw, so probably unlikely, but might as well get this guaranteed information before we commit anything. And yeah, we're going to play the Balaged from our hand, gain our life, get our land in play as we try to keep up with this coding here, and pass it back to our opponent at this point. They go ahead and coding away our green source yet again, continuing with their plan over there, and they play a Walking Ballista for 2. Yeah, I guess that one's just to block to keep their Karn alive, I suppose. And the top card of our library is a Gruul Turf, which means that we can float our blue with this Glasspool Shores here, pick it up, and play the Glasspool Mimic as a copy of our Courser to, again, continue to apply pressure to this Karn the Great Creator on board. And that is the line that we choose to go with, as we are anticipating needing to save our Reclamation Sage for a Chalice or an Ensnaring Bridge or something along those lines. Although, in all honesty, at the time that I was playing this, I didn't think about the line of using Reclamation Sage to blow up the Ballista. Maybe that would have been a good line, but we choose to go ahead and go with the Glasspool Mimic play, copying our Courser. And we're going to swing at the Karn here, take our free attack, eat our opponent's Walking Ballista, and yeah, pass it back. And our opponent plays a Tectonic Edge for turn, and fires it straight away at our Gruul Turf, which is pretty unfortunate. So our opponent minuses their Karn to get our additional land out of play, thanks to their coding, leaving us on 2 lands. But now we have a board that can actually clock our opponent's Karn. So we do have another land to play thanks to all the flip lands that we're playing, including this turn timber. So we can actually still cast Reclamation Sage this upcoming turn in order to put another body in play. And yeah, that's all our opponent has for us. So we go ahead and top deck this Dismember. We have a Hanweir on top, and we'd like to get value out of our Courser, but unfortunately, we need to play around our opponent having a Dismember off the top, something along those lines, so we can finally get this card out of play. We definitely can't beat them coding a land every single turn here, especially if we can't clock the card meaningfully, so we're going to shock in our turn timber here. Gain our life, of course. Start by swinging at the card with everything and seeing what happens. And the Karn does bite the bullet, so we finally managed to get that one off the table. Here we're going to go ahead and commit this Reclamation Sage and blow up our opponent's Chalice, I believe, as if our opponent does have another copy of Karn here, we can always attack it with everything and get it off the battlefield. So the liquid metal coating is no longer a problem, and we pass it back and see what our opponent has in store for us. Of course, they do go ahead and commit that second Karn that we were expecting they were holding on to. Again, we can kill this one, so it's not a huge issue as they go ahead and coding away our land here and pass it back. We are going to top deck our Hanweir here and play it, as we do not find a land on the top of our library with Courser, sadly. And yeah, we're going to go full on straight to combat, sending everything at our opponent's Karn, and their Karn bites the bullet here. It's also worth noting that our opponent has fallen quite low on time here. They're at 4 minutes and 40 seconds to our 9 minutes here, almost 10 minutes. So the clock is surprisingly relevant as we are only on game 2 here. And our opponent plays a third Karn the Great Creator. So that must have been the 2 cards that they've been holding on to this whole time here. And here they're going to go ahead and immediately minus their Karn to get the value out of it before it just dies, of course. And they get a Wormcoil Engine here, which is pretty annoying. Luckily, we can dismember it to kill the 6/6 side of it and just have to deal with the tokens. But Wormcoil is definitely problematic to some extent, as we do find another land off top. And in fact, it is a Gruul Turf, which is actually great because it represents 2 lands rather than 1. So we're going to go ahead and play that, of course, and bounce our Radiant Fountain for even more life gain value, as our Courser gains us another 2 life here. Coursers, I should say, keeping our life total very high without any effort whatsoever. And here we're going to go ahead and commit these attacks, the 2 Coursers at the Karn and the Reclamation Sage at them. And that's just because if our opponent has anything like a gut shot or something crazy to kill the Reclamation Sage, we'd rather send our Coursers at the Karn to make sure that Karn bites the bullet. We can't afford to lose more lands here, so we're going to go ahead and play around that. And yeah, we pass it back, holding up our Dismember, of course. And our opponent, unfortunately, has the 6th land drop, and it happens to be the 3rd Tron piece they've just naturally drawn, which is fascinating. And they do commit their, oops, just kidding. You thought I was going to say Wormcoil Engine here, didn't you? Nope. Our opponent throws Oblivion Sower into play, exiling the top 4 cards of our library here. And they hit a Valakut, as well as a Titan and another Courser here, leaving a land on top, which is actually kind of nice. The Sower is obviously going to come into play here, and they pass it back. We top deck this Garen Brig, seeing an Amulet on top. And yeah, we're immediately going to throw this Garen Brig into play, as we can just play Radiant Fountain and Slam Titan this upcoming turn. So there is that. And yeah, we do not attack here, of course, because we just lose a creature to do 4 damage, and that is not a good trade, so we're passing it back. And our opponent now is going to commit a Reality Smasher, as well as the Wormcoil Engine. So they do have a bit of a clock in play, but we'll see what we can manage here as our opponent swings. We do briefly consider the triple block with our Reclamation Sage and 2 Coursers, but this was going to kill one of our Coursers, which is helping us with our life total buffer here, and it would also kill our Reclamation Sage as well, meaning we have no good blocks in the future either. The reason you would consider triple blocking here is to play around an All Is Dust, as that would basically just end the game, and having 1 less threat in play to pressure our life total is going to be better against an All Is Dust, but we decide not to play around that here as our opponent is top decking it. And yeah, so we, I don't know why it's paused here. Yep, so we go ahead and do not block. We top deck this amulet here, seeing a land on top. And here we're just going to go ahead and play our untapped source, the Radiant Fountain, tapping all of our mana and slamming this Titan straight away into play. And the reason why we don't play out the Amulet and the Garenbrig off top here is because with the 5 land names that we have in play currently, our Titan is going to be triggering Field of the Dead. If we were to play Amulet into Garenbrig and activate Garenbrig to cast Titan, we would have 4 different land names in play, minus the Radiant Fountain here, which would be in our hand, and we wouldn't be able to trigger Field, and that's going to be very important to surviving here, especially if our opponent has an All is Dust. The Field is going to allow us to continue to churn out blockers here. So our Titan does come into play here, and we are going to go ahead and search for a Valakut and a Simic Growth Chamber. The Valakut is to set up for a potential Dryad draw to help us clean up our opponent's Wormcoil Engine, for example, among other things. And the bounce lane here is going to be relevant for triggering Feel the Dead repeatedly, so that is the play. We're going to gain our 4 life here and make a couple zombie tokens. We pick up the Radiant Fountain, actually, as the green sources in play will ensure that we will be able to cast Primeval Titan even if our opponent has a way to recur Tectonic Edge or plays another Tectonic Edge. It does play around that. I think perhaps it might have been better to pick up a bounce land here, but I haven't done the calculation, so our opponent top decks and immediately slams All is Dust, the one that we were hoping they would not have. And luckily, we're not dead here thanks to the life total buffer that our courses have been giving us. And we do have an active field in play, so our next Titan might be able to stabilize this board. We'll have to see. But things are looking bad here as our opponent goes and commits an attack with everything, of course, trying to get this game over with. That All is Dust was a pretty god-level top deck, I must say. And here we draw a Engineered Explosives, which is completely irrelevant. We're going to cast our Amulet. We're going to cast our Primeval Titan, saving a land drop for this turn so that we can use our land drop with Valakut triggers if we get a Dryad in play, which we should be able to do here as we tap our mana, leaving open the ability to use our Hanweir here. We're going to search. And the choices here are Tolari West and a Simic Growth Chamber, of course, as you might expect. And we're going to get our zombie tokens and do the untaps and all of that good stuff. And the choice here for land to pick up is, in fact, the tapped Growth Chamber, as after we haste, we'll be leaving these 3 mana in play. So on our attack trigger with our Primeval Titan, we can get another 2 bounce lands, one of them being Growth Chamber, and pick up Tolari West plus another tap land, perhaps like the Garenbrig or something, or maybe even just one of the bounce lands. We'll see how that plays out, but this will give us enough mana to transmute for and play a Dryad after this upcoming attack, which of course we're going to go ahead and commit. So we swing with our Titan here, as it's going to produce more chump blockers for us anyways. And here we get Gruul Turf and Growth Chamber, again executing the plan that we came up with from the beginning, allowing us to get a bunch of triggers, pick up a couple lands, the Tolari West being one of them, and the Hanweir here being the choice, so we get to keep as much mana in play as we can. And yeah, they take their 6 damage, and we're going to go ahead and transmute this Tolari West, pick up a Summoner's Pact, pack 4, a Dryad, cast said Dryad, and play our first land drop for the turn, sending the Valakut trigger at our opponent's zombie. And unfortunately, the reasoning for this particular choice was that I did not realize that we had a second land drop for this turn, as I forgot that Dryad is giving us an additional land drop. So it probably would have been better to send both triggers at this Wormcoil Engine, but that's okay, as we gain our life here and get a body out of play, playing the second land, and this time just shooting our opponent, since we have no good targets here anyways. Definitely would have been better to shoot the Wormcoil, but that's alright. Our opponent top decks and plays a Thought-Knot Seer. And here we're going to just go ahead and fire off our Dismember using the Dryad ability to tap one of these lands for black, as we can discard the explosives to the, not the Thought-Knot Seer, the Reality Smasher, as this is one of the attackers for this turn. And we can discard the explosives to kill this Reality Smasher, and then our opponent's Thought-Knot Seer cannot take anything from our hand, and we will be taking less damage this turn overall. So that is the plan. Our opponent's Thought-Knot Seer sees a Simic Growth Chamber in hand, and they go ahead and commit to the attack here. with just the sower. I haven't done the math. Maybe our opponent did some combat math and decided that attacking with a Worm Coil ended up in their impending loss, but I think they probably should have attacked with a Worm Coil as well here, as if we untap with our Dryad and Titan in play against our opponent's 0 cards, I think it's pretty unlikely that they survive this upcoming turn. So here we are just going to go ahead and get our opponent's Oblivion Sower out of play, try to minimize the battlefield, as we already have an overwhelming advantage with Field, Valakut, Dryad, and Titan here, so trying to minimize the battlefield. We know that we can kill our opponent with Valakut triggers if we absolutely have to, so take no damage, keep our opponent's threats out of play if they do find another copy of All Is Dust here. That's the plan. We are going to pay for our Summoner's Pact, as losing the game is not fun, especially if it just happens randomly and for no real reason. And here we top deck a Turn Timber Symbiosis, and we're going to go ahead and cast that one, leaving a red floating so that if we do hit another Titan, we can activate Hanweir here. There's no real reason to do this necessarily, except to kind of goof around, as another Titan would be assuredly just lethal. But here we do find a second Dryad, which if our opponent had a card in hand would be relevant to play around Dismember on our first Dryad, but it's a moot point at this point. And we are going to haste the new Dryad and swing out with a crew. Our Titan trigger, of course, is getting a Ghost Quarter here and another land. Ah, see, I was confused and searching around, like, what happened to our second Valakut? Why couldn't we find it? And I had assumed in the game that it had gotten destroyed or something by a Karn or a liquid metal coating, but if you look carefully, you can see our second Valakut right over here. Our opponent happened to steal that particular one with their Oblivion Sower, so... But that's okay, we can still make the most of this as we get a Tolaria West and a Ghost Quarter here. And the Ghost Quarter is intended to aim at our own land so we can get an additional Valakut trigger this turn, and we are going to go ahead and immediately send these 2 Valakut triggers at our opponent's Worm Coil engine so that their big Death Touch Lifelinker can't just block and trade with our Dryad. If they were to put Thought-Knot Seer in front of Dryad and then Worm Coil in front of Dryad, then that would kill our Valakut triggers plan, so we're trying to avoid that. Our opponent gets their 2 worms, of course, and we're going to, again, go ahead and immediately fire off our Ghost Quarter to get not only another zombie, but a Valakut trigger to kill the Death Touch worm, so that our opponent can only, at maximum, get this Dryad or this Dryad out of play, and not both. And yeah, that's pretty much the game by itself. As our opponent blocks, goes to 2, we play land and send a Valakut trigger to the dome here, as our opponent has 1 minute left on the clock to our 2 minutes left on the clock here. So we've got a riveting game 3 here. I will see you guys for it very shortly. Alright guys, so we are here for game 3 against our opponent with their 1 minute and 9 seconds on the clock. Of course, there are going to be no sideboard changes, as this game is going to be all about time management and pretty much nothing else. So that is the goal with this game in mind. Not even necessarily to make all the best plays, but just to make all the plays quickly. And we see an opening hand with a untapped source, a balanced land here to help us continue to make our land drops, a couple of 3 drops here to play, and a Reclamation Sage to interact. This hand is not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, but again, this game is not going to come down to anything more than whether our opponent can manage to beat their own clock, so we're just going to go ahead and keep it here. We could probably just pass the turn for every turn of this game and still win, but anyways, our opponent's on the play here. They lead on Temple into Map, which is a fairly strong start, and made better by the presence of a Chalice on 0, as we do look at our dead Summoner's Pact in our hand, but that's okay. We already have a Titan, so of course, we're going to just go ahead and play out our Force here and pass it back as fast as possible, as our opponent plays Wastes and passes it back as fast as possible. We top deck another land here, but we would like to cast one of these 3 drops this upcoming turn, so we very quickly slam this Gruul Turf into play, picking up our Forest here as our opponent goes ahead and maps to save their clock down to 30 seconds over at our opponent's side of the table. And yeah, we pick up the Forest, go to discard, pitch our dead Summoner's Pact, and pass it back to our opponent with their 20 seconds on the clock now, nearly. We're going to go ahead and play our land, slam our Dryad, play the Gruul Turf we just freshly drew off the top here, and pass it back to our opponent. And they have a land into Reality Smasher. They are going to swing with their Smasher, of course, and they are down to 0 seconds on the clock here. But we go ahead and untap here, and we do see that our opponent has lost the game to time as they receive priority on our upkeep, and that is the finale of this match. Take it however you will. Regardless, we did manage to win the game here. I apologize. Let me format this deck list real quickly. All right, now everything is in place where it should be, right and ready. And yeah, conclusions for the match. We did see the power of Courser of Krufix in this particular match. Courser was fantastic the entire match long, which would make sense in a sort of a mid-range mirror here. We did see the power of Courser giving us an additional way to threaten these planeswalkers that can be problematic, like Karn or Ashiok. Courser was very ready to handle those situations and was very crucial in maintaining a steady flow of lands and cards, working exactly as intended, which is definitely very exciting. I will see you guys for match 2, where hopefully we can continue to use Courser to the best of our ability. I really hope we get paired against Burn. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Thank you for joining me for this match, and I do apologize for the games 2 and 3 being playback. It's not my preference, but at least you got a live game 1. And yeah, I'll see you guys for the next match. This is Red Face Menace, signing off.